Hello and welcome to Community Connections with the North Little Rock Public Library System. I'm Derek, and joining me today is science entertainer Joseph Higgs, who may be better known as Nitro Joe. Thank you for being here today. Let's begin by telling the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you said, I go by Nitro Joe, and there's a reason for that. What I do is I do science entertainment. Now, what happened was there was a point in life when I realized that I have this ability to entertain. I learned this at an early age, but I also love science. And so eventually, over a long span, which would take far too long to explain, but I can literally say that I came from doing high school theater to working at high school with the St. Louis Science Center. I'm not from here, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. So at St. Louis Science Center. And then I eventually went to college to study musical theater. Then I left college, did real theater. Then I went back to college. It's a long story. At the end of the day, when I was selling insurance for Aflac, of all things, I saw an advertisement that said, hey, we need educators and teachers to do science stuff. And I was like, well, I know how to do this. I understand these science programs. I went in, learned, bang, here we are, almost 16 years later on my own, and now I'm doing science entertainment for children full-time. This is all I do.
Wow. Have you found that, having said 16 years, that your I don't mean that in an insulting way, but the entertainment, science entertainment that you provide to audiences, has it evolved in any way?
Yes, quite a bit. Now, when you say evolved, what I have to understand is I am, at this point, I'll turn 49 this year.
Okay.
And I've been doing this, literally, I started my first show when I was 28 or so. So over the years, I'm a father. My oldest is 22. She's moved out. I'm looking at people now. I'm literally looking at women now with their kids, and they're bringing in younger siblings that are almost as old as my daughter. So things have changed. Yeah, everything's changed. But what hasn't changed is getting the kids to just catch, see, get excited. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've done over the years is I've spent time in classrooms. I've spent times with small groups. I've also done big shows. I prefer to do the big showy thing. I wanted to be a professional actor for many years. But what happened was once I got into doing science shows, all that went out the window. I just want to do the science show. I want the kids to get excited about learning about cool, fun science stuff. It's exciting, and as I get older, literally and physically, just get older and see the changes, I just want to get the kids more and more and more. And so the way I approach them, because when I started, they couldn't see these experiments on Facebook like they can now. So kids will ask me things like, are you going to do the elephant toothpaste? And I'm like, no, I think I'll skip that. I'll do something more mundane. But when I say mundane, it's going to be fun, mundane. It's not going to be regular. So it's rather different, but my whole goal is I want to get them excited. I want to be the hype man of science education. I want to do the rah-rah. That's what I want to do.
Have you ever had someone contact you years later and say, hey, because of your performance, once again, I hate to use that word, but you know I don't mean it insultingly, your entertainment, I went into physics or chemistry or whatever, a branch of science or education.
Okay, so at the top, yes, it was at the very top of this year. Jefferson County is just outside of St. Louis County. Okay. And top of the year, it had to be the second week in January. It was super cold up in St. Louis, freezing cold. And I had received a call from a woman saying, can you do these couple shows at the end of the week for our entire school? And I was like, really? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, all right, well, this is going to be kind of pricey, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she's like, no, we can do it. We can handle it. I was like, okay. And so I've got all the kids from all the schools cycling through that whole day. And they're just coming to see my science show doing things. And halfway through, I asked her, I was like, So I noticed on my contact site, you said that you had previously done something. She goes, oh yes, my daughter was in your College for Kids camp. And so St. Louis Community College has a College for Kids camp, which I was involved in for 12 years. I did rocketry, I did general science, and I did advanced science. So all week long, here we are at summer camp situation. I'm sure many of the parents know what summer camps are. I was just running the class at the camp, and I'd been running it for years. Her daughter, back in 2012-ish, she was in one of my basic rocket camps. Then she did my advanced rocket camp. Then she did some other science camp. Now she's at university, and she is literally doing mechanical engineering because she was like, I loved all this stuff from Nitro Joe, and I want to do all this stuff, and I just wanted to understand how these rockets are made, and he said all this, he said all that. And I was just like, really? And that was just the most recent, but I've had a couple, but that was the most recent where she was like, my daughter was such a fan, and I see that you're still doing this after all these years. I want the whole school to see it. And I was just literally almost choked up. But yes, it's happened, and that's why I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm just retire? Nah, I'll just keep doing it.
What a compliment. What a compliment.
It's great.
I am curious because of, now I will admit to the audience, I was not able to see your presentation this morning to our library. So some of this may be just because I just don't know. How much time does it take you in your presentation to come up with new ideas? I'm assuming that you change your, I want to say, routines over the years, but you've got to do experimenting to find out, will this work? Do they have the proper equipment if I need it? That sort of thing. How much time would you say you spend in preparation if you introduce a new sort of presentation or routine in your presentation?
Okay, so like I said, many years ago when I started this, you couldn't see everything on YouTube like you can now. So what happens is I might get an idea or a suggestion from a child or an adult that says, would you try this or would you try that? So what will happen is I'll take that, and it would probably take me somewhere between 6 months to 18 months before I'd actually incorporate it into a live program. Because one of the things you have to understand is that you didn't see it, but I always tell the kids that I've got 3 rules. And these are my 3 golden rules of science. And they're pretty basic. Number 1, please, no talk while I'm talking. Number 2, don't touch my equipment. Number 3, have fun. Number 2 is really important because the equipment I use, once again, I was working at the St. Louis Science Center as a teenager. So at the St. Louis Science Center, we had to understand all of the exhibits, but that was the first time I was able to do live science shows. So I'm 15, 16 years old doing live science shows for adults that are walking around, patrons. One of the things I learned from the other people working there, I was what was called an exhibit coordinator. It was a very small thing. Once again, this is the 80s, late 80s. But I had a lot of graduate students from Washington University, and these were really intelligent guys. And they showed me very carefully and very technically, you can't mess with that, can't do that. When I went to college, one of the things I took was chemistry for majors. So therefore, I can understand not just the basic chemistry. I already knew that. I wanted the full-scale stuff. I wanted to be able to use 6 molar sulfuric acid underneath the hood and not burn my face off. I wanted to understand how caustic things were, or how acidic things were, or how reactive is that sodium and that water. So I know how dangerous the things can be. So I also know how to make it safe. Basically, what I've always wanted to do is translate that big science stuff and make it a lot smaller. I'm not like a Steve Spangler type of guy. He's much bigger, more highly polished. I'm a regular guy, and I just want to have regular fun. I just want the kids to get excited. Bill Nye the Science Guy, he's more polished also. Once again, I want to make it more regular. I want to make it more down to earth, but I don't want to make it boring. I don't want to make it cheap. Like I said, I want to make it more regular, but I don't want to make it boring or cheap. So it could take 6 to 18 months because I'm going to test it very slowly, very carefully. And can I bring it? For instance, I don't bring liquid nitrogen with me.
Okay.
Because you can't screw top it on. It'll explode.
Oh, okay. See, I'm not a chemistry major, so everything you're saying, I'm learning. Okay.
So, and since it basically has a styrofoam loose fitting cap, I don't want to put that in a vehicle with me riding back and forth because it can slosh and spill. So instead, I'll find different ways to get a similar situation. That's why it could take so long. Just to give you an example.
Okay.
Yeah.
This we're doing this broadcast in a library. Have you written a book about your life, or about like a memoir, more or less? You talk about it. Let me tell you about what it was like when I was in Milwaukee in 2012 and this fell apart or something like that, because you're just, it's exciting listening to you.
I could tell you what it was like one time when I was up in Joliet, right by Chicago, and I literally had this bottle. I had a water bottle. It's a blue water bottle, and it's part of an experiment I do, and I always tell the kids, like, look, this can be kind of dangerous, but it's really cool, and I've got it all taken care of. And I'm telling you guys, the reason I wear a lab coat, it's not just for show. This is actually flame resistant. I hadn't known at the time, but it always occurred to me in the back of my head, if I do this experiment wrong, this could blow up, or this bottle might be brittle or fragile because we're just getting in the winter, and it was a really cold fall. And I literally put this long match inside, and it's already filled with methanol, and it's supposed to give us a nice blue gush of fire. Nice blue gush of fire, and then I heard a crack, and then boom, just blue fire blew up all over me. And I just said, all right, guys, hey, things like that can't happen. These kids are just going, what? Once again, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this can't happen. Every time I do an experiment that I think there might be danger, I always say, this might happen in the back of my head, or I tell the kids, this might happen. And I tell them, science is not what we call an exact science. It is the absolute best probable outcome, and that's what it's about. So when you say 99.999%, there's a reason it's never 100. There's that probability out there. It might be far out there, but it's out there. And if you ever act like that probability is not there, that's when people get injured.
Okay.
Case in point, I was in junior high when Columbia happened. When the Columbia space shuttle took off.
Oh, okay.
It was on all the monitors. It was in all the hallways during lunchtime. You can walk in all the monitors. And when it happened, everything in school just went. My school had 3,500 students. Everything just went silent. And when you go back, what happened? Somebody rushed something. They said, well, it's just a small probability. It's just an O-ring. I mean, come on, what's going to happen? And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's Columbia disaster. The important thing about the Columbia disaster is this. Don't make the mistake of thinking it's just that little bitty small thing. That little bitty small thing can be everything. I always check for almost everything I can, to the best of my ability. I'm only human.
Right.
But as you said, I have a routine. And that's why it's called a routine. When somebody gets on stage or when somebody does a performance, it's a routine. And it needs to be routine. Like I have a routine when I start my car. I want that engine to go through that routine. When your engine doesn't go through that routine, that's going to cost you a few $1,000s.
Yes.
So that's an engine. I don't want a routine that costs something even far more than something mechanical. So that's how I look at it.
Because you're educating and also entertaining young people, what advice would you give to young people who might want to go into a career similar to yours or something related to yours? What advice would you give to them?
My advice would be, don't pigeonhole yourself. Pigeonhole, it's an old expression. Basically, don't keep yourself in one bubble. I literally did science activities. I did theater. I did camp. I substitute taught. I was in classrooms. I was around what I thought would be in my skill set. I know my skill set is I want to get out there and I want to inform people, but I also want to entertain people. But then I also want to learn some things. But I also want to make some things happen. And so what can you do? When I was really heavily in the theater, my theater professor at the time said, what other career can you possibly have where you can do everything and not being stuck doing one thing? When I get older and I was actually teaching and researching. I love research. I mean, I really love book research, but I also like putting my hands on it. But the other thing I learned was like, wait a minute. In education, or just in science research. My aunt was a organic science researcher. She basically made shampoo for an old company called Rexall. You might recognize it. They won't know what Rexall means at all.
I know what Rexall is.
So she made shampoo. But so when you're researching and you're studying, what other thing can you do where you can learn as much from so many other experts? That was the cool thing. So do what you love, but spread yourself out a little bit. Reach out. Do what you love, but spread yourself out and, reach out for that.
Well, Nitro Joe, this has been a phenomenally wonderful pleasure for me, and I'm sure it has been for the audience. So thank you so much for giving us this time. All right. Thank you for being here today. It has been a pleasure. You can find more information about Nitro Joe at nitrojoescience.com. If you like this video and would like to see more of our content, please visit our social media on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Have a great day, everyone.